welcome back to another video. We are on day 16, so we are just 14 days away, right? 2 weeks exactly until my birthday. So today is just 1 day away from Juneteenth, but today in my community we have our Juneteenth festival. And this one is related to Juneteenth and being able to do things to empower my community of African American and Black folk. So let's get into it. So number 16, continue to conduct the Black Health Panel in my community. So about, I would say 2 years ago, pre-COVID, right, the COVID epidemic, I was kind of processing that in my community, I oftentimes see a large gap in health literacy amongst the African Americans, particularly in the predominantly Black community that I served. And oftentimes a lot of people were saying, well, when they go to certain doctors or they feel like they're having conversations with doctors, they don't understand them, right? So, I mean, I always go back to the fact that I'm Haitian, right? I'm Haitian American, and one of the things that, oftentimes what I've been experiencing or hearing is that like a Haitian will go to a doctor because now they've developed diabetes, and the doctor tells them stop eating rice, right? And that's it, and that's the end of the education, right? Take your diabetic medication, stop eating rice. But if you understood the cultural nuances of our community, simply telling a Caribbean person to stop eating rice is setting them up to fail without context of understanding what they can supplement it with that still fits within their diet and their culture, like bulgur wheat or other ways like utilizing brown rice, but simply saying rice and eliminating that which is a staple in their diet. I oftentimes being like, oh, the doctor told me to stop, but I ain't gonna stop, right? And then that leads to other chronic conditions. So I was like, you know what? I need to start having, because I know a lot of Black and brown doctors in the community, right? And I've been blessed enough to have networked with a lot of them, but also call quite a few of them, like, friends and acquaintances and professionals that I know. And I was just like, let me create something that allows them to come to one room and start talking about health in the way that us as Black folk can really engage in a conversation, right? And what I came to realize is that it doesn't matter what socioeconomic status somebody is, right? All of us benefited from having better health literacy and having really concrete, honest, open, and vulnerable conversations with Black providers that looked like us, right? I had men and I had women of different specialties, mental health, in pediatrics, in pharmacy. I had weight management, OBGYN. I had those that practice, a sex therapist came, and having that space where we were able to talk with our people in a way that we could be like, what about this? And Black folk, we real good for a good conspiracy theory, right? But being able to like really hash those out and talk in a way that allowed us to be honest and vulnerable, I was like, this is what our community needs, right? And since then, I've been able to do a total of 3 of them. And every time I do it, I realize that this is something that my community needs. And walking into my 30s, I really want to make it something that is like official, right? Not something that I kind of do fly by night or randomly, but something that's embedded in town hall meetings. So something that's embedded in our community conversations and our topics, and people know that it's coming up. Because I'm tired of my people and the people that look like me, 1, not having access, right? 2, not understanding health literacy. So whatever the doctor says, they think that it goes without asking questions or feeling comfortable asking questions. Or 3, thinking that they don't have people that look like them that they can be honest with. And really going through this and creating this really showed me that this is a niche that really would benefit from. And that's something that I want to continue. Like, I want it to become something, like, I want to, like, make it official, right? Like, create a system around it, create a business around it, so that it is something that you know, can bring in opportunities and grants and funding into our community to ensure that those that are oftentimes marginalized and disenfranchised, particularly when it comes to health, start to have access. And I think that's part of my purpose in life, is to really utilize my talents and my skills to be able to serve those most in need. And I felt like through this health panel that I created, I'm doing just that, right? And every time I do it, I'm not only introduced to other Black providers in my community, but I'm also introduced and asked by community members to do this again. And this really shows me a need for it, right? Because the community is asking for it. And I want to be able to stay true to that, right? And be able to serve them in the way that they need to be served, and they're asking to be served. So this is particularly important because we oftentimes hear that health disparities are disproportionately affecting African Americans. And I'm not making light of that when I roll my eyes, but I think that part of the reason is because doctors and providers that don't look like the community they serve are oftentimes having a disconnect when we're talking about engaging the patient in their care as well, right? And even myself, I've experienced where for years I'm going and I'm asking and I'm engaging a doctor about ailments and situations that I'm worried about. And oftentimes I hear that it's a one-size-fits-all approach that I'm given, that I want to contribute in reducing the health disparities amongst the African Americans in my community, right? I want to aid in increasing health literacy. I want to aid in creating access. And one of my ultimate goals would be to create a reference book that has of course, it may not ever be all, but it has many of the providers, the Black and brown providers in our community. So if people don't feel comfortable going to someone else, they at least know that there's someone that looks like them, that they know that has the same, desires to engage in those conversations and understands them culturally, to be able to engage and at least be a starting point. And I think that this is something that I'm going to continue doing, because not only because it has been asked of me, but I think that this is part of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I want you to hold me to it. Like, I want to continue doing these Black health panels in our communities, and particularly in the, African American community, where I know that there's high rates of health literacy and high rates of low economic status in that community, and we'll be able to bring those resources and that education to them. So yeah, I'm planning to at least have one more before the end of the year, and really start engaging specialties in these conversations. And yeah, number 16, I want to continue to do the Black health panels in my community, and also create a Black provider reference book. And again, this is something that I want to do to ensure that I am doing my part to increase the health literacy and also access to those that, to Black and brown people in my community, and then also engage them in conversations about their health. So even if they take a little piece from it, they have taken something from this conversation, and then they will be able to then utilize that to be able to do the work that they're doing. And I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to see how big it gets, and how we can really create a community that is founded and that stands on ensuring that we increase the health literacy of the most marginalized people in our communities. So yeah, hold me to it, because I think that even those of us that are educated, and even those of us that might be, health adjacent, right? In health professions that are adjacent to that I want all of us to be able to know and not be afraid to engage our own providers in conversations about our health, and also advocate for yourself. I think that the biggest thing that I learned from this process of, having these conversations with providers is really about health advocacy, right? That I am a firm believer that if I have a conversation with a provider and I don't feel heard, I don't feel listened to, I don't feel like they're engaging me in my health, you're fired. I'm moving on, right? That I am not just a patient, but I am also a consumer, right? And part of being a consumer is I know that at the end of the day that I have choices, right? And that's why, you know, I'm lucky enough to have insurance, right? And I know that I have, if I'm not satisfied with this provider, I can seek someone else within my network. And that's something, and it took me a long time of finding a provider that I felt like listened to me and that I can engage in conversations with. And that's what I want to be able to empower you guys to do as well, that you feel comfortable when you find someone that you feel like you connect with, so that when you have problems or you have questions or you just want to suggest something that you heard, you have a provider that listens and that also, you know, engages in that conversation so that both of you are working together as part of the healthcare team. So yeah, thank you again for listening to another video. And until next time, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And see you in another video.